Invite viewers to post their location and local time. Now imagine sipping your morning coffee, sunlight glinting off the lake. The only sound a loon calling in the distance when suddenly your front door flies open like you're in a low-budget police drama. That's how Matthew's Tuesday morning goes. He's at his drafting table, pencil in hand, sketching the roofline for a client's eco-lodge, when in storms Clara Hayes, HOA president and self-appointed guardian of community standards, trailed by two sheriff's deputies who look like they'd rather be anywhere else. She's got that expression of someone about to deliver a Shakespearean monologue if Shakespeare had written about zoning ordinances. But here's the twist. This isn't their first meeting. Weeks earlier, Clara had shown up with a plate of chocolate chip cookies and a smile so fixed it could survive a hurricane. Historians still argue whether it was the cookies or the smile that were more dangerous. She claimed she was welcoming him to the neighborhood, but her eyes were already scanning his high-end computer setup, the extra drafting tables, the client seating area mental calculator running faster than a Vegas slot machine. "Oh my, this looks quite like a commercial operation," she'd purred, the way a cat purrs before pouncing. From that day on, it was wore in business casual clothing. Anonymous complaints to the county building department sprouted like dandelions in spring. Mysterious safety concerns killed his insurance coverage. Inspectors materialized to examine dangerous wiring that turned out to be decorative molding. Clara even whispered to clients about traffic hazards and schoolchildren at risk because nothing sells fear like hypothetical kids in danger. One by one, projects dried up. It was a masterclass in plausible deniability. Her hands never directly held the knife, but Matthew could feel it in his back. The kicker dropped when she accidentally left behind a notepad, a perfect little dossier on his property layout, client patterns, and at the bottom, in neat handwriting, commercial violation for sale. Below that, a name and number, Marcus Pinnacle, $500,000 commission on acquisition. That's when Matthew learned his family's three-generation cabin sat atop one of the largest freshwater springs in the county, worth millions to the right developer. And to Clara, worth burning every bridge in town. Once Matthew knew the truth that his grandfather's cabin wasn't just a picturesque office, but the cork sealing a fortune in freshwater, everything Clara had done made perfect, if infuriating, sense. This wasn't about an HOA rulebook or the aesthetic integrity of lakefront porches. This was about drilling rights, supply contracts, and development phases that would turn the shoreline into a luxury resort with a municipal water pipeline hidden under its spa deck. The $500,000 commission she'd scribbled on her pad was pocket change compared to the tens of millions in long-term revenue she was angling for. Clara's pressure escalated. Inspectors arrived with emergency orders. Reports were pre-typed with violations so ridiculous that historians still argue whether one of them labeling native wildflowers as hazardous invasive growth was satire or just bureaucracy gone feral. Neighbors, once friendly, now crossed the street to avoid him. The woman 2 houses down began walking her dog past his cabin every morning, giving him a small, defiant nod as if to say, "I know, and I'm rooting for you." But the rest stayed silent, afraid of winding up on Clara's list. That's when Matthew called in a card he'd been holding for 2 years, Governor Evelyn Wilson. He'd worked with her on the state's Veteran Center project, designing a space that blended accessibility with beauty, and she'd remembered him. On the phone, he pitched a new community center proposal, a real project, but also hinted at a deeper problem: corruption embedded in rural permitting networks. Evelyn, already aware of development scandals in nearby counties, agreed to meet at his cabin to review the designs and maybe poke at the hornet's nest. On Friday morning, the lake was glassy, the kind of calm that tricks you into thinking nothing bad could happen. Evelyn arrived in an unmarked government car, dressed in a sharp suit that whispered authority without shouting it. For nearly an hour, they discussed square footage, grant funding, and approval timelines. Matthew almost forgot about Clara until the crunch of tires on gravel announced her arrival with what looked like a small bureaucratic militia. Outside, she was giving her troops Inspector Rivera, Deputy Walsh, and a clutch of clipboard-wielding board members a final pep talk. Through the glass, Matthew caught Evelyn's faint smile. The governor positioned herself at his drafting table, spreading out official documents so authentic that even a conspiracy theorist would nod. The bait was set. All Clara had to do was take it. The door slammed open so hard it rattled the old cedar beams, and Clara charged in like a general leading the world's most tedious coup. "This illegal meeting ends now," she barked, her voice booming with the confidence of someone who had no idea she'd just stepped into quicksand. Rivera trailed behind, already looking queasy, and Walsh hovered like a man who'd realized he'd been tricked into crashing the wrong party. Clara launched into her speech about community standards, pointing at drafting tables and computer monitors like they were contraband. She was mid-gesture when her gaze finally locked on Evelyn. Business suit? Check. Official documents? Check. But state letterhead? Real seals? And then Evelyn stood, offered her hand, and said in that calm, unshakable voice, "I'm Governor Evelyn Wilson. I'm here reviewing state project designs." The freeze was instant. Clara's mouth hung open, clipboard sliding from her grasp, and scattering fake violation reports like giant confetti across the floor. Outside, neighbors leaned in, sensing something had gone deliciously wrong. Evelyn didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She laid a thick folder on the table, bank records, emails, recorded calls, all tracing Clara's harassment campaigns to Lakeside Development. "We've been investigating development corruption for 8 months, she said. Your area was flagged 6 months ago. We were waiting for exactly this mistake." Rivera made a break for the door, but state agents intercepted him before he reached the porch. Walsh stammered apologies, swearing he'd been told this was a legitimate HOA matter. Evelyn nodded, noting his cooperation for the record. Through the windows, Matthew saw agents interviewing neighbors who'd once signed Clara's petitions. Now they were telling how she'd manipulated them with fear of falling property values. By the time federal agents stepped in to cuff Clara, reading out charges that sounded like the syllabus for a masterclass in white-collar crime, or empire was crumbling in real time. Conspiracy, fraud, civil rights violations, racketeering, every shell company payment, every fake complaint, every intimidation tactic, all laid bare. Her glare at Matthew as they led her out was pure venom with a faint, begrudging respect, like a chess master realizing they'd been cornered 3 moves ago. In the weeks that followed, restitution checks went to victims, the HOA held transparent elections, and the water rights were locked under state environmental protection. Matthew kept his cabin, gained a consulting contract with the state, and saw the community knit itself back together. Sometimes justice doesn't just knock, it kicks the door in and rearranges the furniture. The lake is calm again now. He sits at the same desk, drafting a new project, coffee steaming beside him, the governor stopping by for a friendly chat. Outside, the water glints in the late sun, and the only footsteps on his porch are from neighbors bringing pie instead of petitions. In the distance, Clara's foreclosed mansion wears a sold sign, a silent monument to what happens when greed mistakes itself for invincibility. Justice, it turns out, can be as patient as it is precise and worth every single day of the wait. And so, with the last of the paperwork filed and the final echoes of that chaotic autumn fading into memory, the lake settles back into its timeless rhythm. The ripples on the water move slow and unhurried, like they have all the time in the world, which of course they do. Matthew sometimes leans back in his chair just to watch the sun slide across the cedar walls his grandfather built, breathing in that faint scent of wood and lake air that no renovation could ever replace. Life now feels measured in quiet mornings and unbroken afternoons, the kind where the loudest sound is a loon calling or the scratch of pencil on paper. Neighbors stop by without fear, lingering on the porch to trade small talk, and every handshake carries a little more trust than before. The governor's visits are rare but welcome, a reminder that in the right hands, authority can be a shield instead of a weapon. Even Walsh, now firmly on the side of the community, waves from his patrol car with a grin that says the bad days are well and truly over. Clara's name only comes up in low voices, more as a cautionary tale than a threat. Her story folded into the local lore like the time the lake froze solid in '78 or the summer the fish practically jumped into boats. Historians, those few who care to debate such things, still argue whether her downfall was the work of careful strategy or just the perfect storm of arrogance meeting opportunity. As evening settles, the light on the water turns molten and the shadows grow long across the drafting table. Matthew closes his notebook, not because the work is done, but because some moments are too good to waste indoors. He steps outside, coffee in hand, feeling the boards creak underfoot, and lets the cool air wrap around him. In that stillness, with the lake breathing slow and steady, it's easy to believe that some battles, once won, stay won. And the whisper of the water against the shore seems to agree.